I've made over $300,000 online with my photography, and today I'm giving you the roadmap and the blueprint I used to get there. So that $300,000 number breaks down like this. $100,000 comes from YouTube AdSense revenue, $100,000 comes from social media sponsorships, and $100,000 comes from product and services sales on my website, evanramp.com. Speaking of evanramp.com, shout out to Squarespace for making that possible and sponsoring today's video. But each one of those revenue streams has one thing in common. They're all based on me building a brand and creating visibility around my photography online. So in today's video, we're going to go over the fundamental steps that I took to create these revenue streams and allow me to build a brand and find an audience that sees value in the things that I'm creating so I can parlay that into money-making opportunities. First step that I took to making this kind of money online with my photography is defining what I'm providing people in the first place. The biggest mistake photographers make is they just put their work out online and they don't understand what they're giving to someone. Now, this is cool if you're just a hobbyist, if you're just sharing your work, sharing your creativity, by all means, go for it. I've talked about this before. Your biggest gift you have as a person is the ability to create something. That's a gift we're all given. And by exercising that gift and making something and sharing it online, have at it. But if your goal is to make money, you need to think a little bit more strategically and think about what you're actually providing the people who are finding your work. This is mistake number one. Before you do anything, before you dive into a business, before you start a YouTube channel, start an email list, a newsletter, a website, whatever, define what it is you're providing people when they find your work online. So if you're a landscape photographer and you create landscapes of the areas around where you live, maybe you're providing value to people who also appreciate the landscapes in the area and you create prints for them. Or maybe you're a street photographer and you understand a city very well, you make good photos in this city. The value you could provide to people when they find you is giving them the option of joining a workshop that you have so you can teach them how to make the same type of photos. Or maybe your value that you're providing to someone is your editing style. Maybe you're very good at doing something in Photoshop or Lightroom and you have a class on Gumroad that people, when they find you and have questions about your editing style, can go and purchase and get more value from you. You need to define where your value is. Now, step number two of this process, once you figure out what you're going to be providing people, is supplementing your income as you build the avenue to provide this value to people. As you build your brand, as you build your website, you build your course, you build your workshop, build your presets, whatever you're doing, you need to supplement yourself financially and not quit your day job. I know that's an unpopular opinion. You love to hear the romanticized story of the artist who just gives up everything and pursues their passion. We live in the real world, and I'm speaking from my own experience. When I first started this YouTube channel, I wasn't making enough money to sustain myself. I had a job as a photographer that I worked 2 days a week at a place called Epitome ATL, but that wasn't paying me enough either. So I worked as a personal trainer, and I did that personal training job up until the point where this YouTube channel grew to the point where I had enough money to sustain myself. And the same thing applied when I worked at Epitome ATL. I worked at that job until I was at the point to where my social media could support me all the way and I didn't have to do that job anymore. And even then, there was a lot of growing pains involved with me quitting that job eventually. And I know this is going to sound harsh, but this is the step that separates the winners from the losers. The winners are willing to put the work in after their day job to build this new revenue stream that's either going to provide them with extra money or make their dreams a possibility. They're willing to put in that work. The losers are not willing to make that sacrifice. And I've talked about this quite a bit on this YouTube channel. When I started this channel, that was some of the worst times of my life. It was very difficult because I was working all day. I was stressed financially. And then at night, the times that I would normally spend to myself to enjoy my life, I was spending building this channel and I wasn't sure if it was going to pay off. I'm glad I put that time in because eventually it did, but had I chose to just, I don't know, forego that hardship and take the easy route, I would be in the same place that I was back then. So step number 3 of this process is stacking skills as soon as you can. The minute you decide that you're going to start a venture of trying to make money online, realize that your creativity is not the only thing that you need. Most artists, especially photographers, think that the only skill they need to have is their photography skill. If they're good at photography, they'll make money. But unfortunately, any business requires a bunch of other skills on top of the primary skill that is making you money. Take my YouTube channel for example. Most of these videos center around information or me going out with my camera and creating something. So I have the photography skill to create something with my camera, but I had to learn the skills to talk on camera and make the YouTube videos necessary to parlay that talent to people like you to consume. You know, people get value from these videos, but I had to learn the skills necessary to package my photography in a way to where it could get to the audience that I wanted. And this same idea is going to apply to you regardless of what avenue you take. If you're someone who's going to do workshops, you need to start working on your skills of setting a schedule, setting an itinerary, understanding how to book people for workshops. What are the ins and outs of that business? If you're going to sell LUTs or presets online, you need to understand the ins and outs of setting up a website, understand the ins and outs of selling digital products. What do you have to do? How do you package it? You also need to understand the ins and outs of marketing. If you want to be like me and have a YouTube channel, you need to understand the skills, like I mentioned, of talking on camera, lighting, all these intangibles that allow you to take your photography skills and translate them into something that is palatable for an audience. Skill stacking is the most powerful thing that you can do, and it never stops. This is something that I had to implement into my business early this year. I'm terrible at marketing, and I wanted to learn more about it. So I started reading books. I started implementing some tactics to build an email list. So now I have more of a direct connection with my audience when I launch products like my course a few weeks ago. I didn't even make a YouTube video. I just sent out an email and started making sales on that course through the email list that I started building way earlier this year because I knew it was a skill that I lacked and I needed to learn. And that leads us into step number 4, which is identifying and growing an audience. The biggest mistake that most people make is trying to grow an audience that is huge from the start. And I've made this reference before. If you look at Nike when they first started, Nike primarily focused on selling track shoes. They had one shoe that they were good at and they became the best in the industry. You want to look at whatever money-making strategy you're taking the same way. Look for 1,000 people who see value in the thing that you're doing and try to capture those 1,000 people. Start there. This is going to be your base. So maybe you're someone, like I said, who's doing street photography workshops. Focus on finding 1,000 people in your city who are interested in street photography in that particular city. Everything that you do should target that group of people. That's what I did when I started my career. I've told this story before. I went into a bookstore and saw Atlanta books and wondered why the photography was so boring and why there were no interesting pictures of Atlanta. So I focused on targeting the audience of people interested in the city of Atlanta. I started to create prints for those people. That was the value hierarchy I created. People found my photography online, and if they were interested in the city, they could purchase a print of the photos I was making on my website. And that was how I made money. But I only focused on people who were interested in Atlanta. And then eventually, once I built that base audience, I spread that audience out and took them over to YouTube with me. Where on YouTube, I implemented the exact same strategy. I started small. I focused on the cameras that I was using, Fujifilm cameras, and I focused on street photography. I didn't try to go too broad from the start. I built the audience of Atlanta people, brought them over to YouTube, built this other base audience, and then expanded outwards from there. I actually have a worksheet on moderncreativemoney.com that goes more into this. It's a brand avatar worksheet that helps you define your brand and then take actions to reach the potential avatar, the perfect customer that you're looking for. We talk about that a lot more in depth on the course, but the idea is focus on targeting a small group of people who are going to be interested in what you do best. Don't worry about a broad audience, worry about a small base audience to start. Now, as your audience begins to grow, more opportunities will begin to present themselves. And these opportunities are how I've made over 6 figures in social media brand collaborations. Brands want to work with you either to create media that they can use or media that promotes their product to your audience. Now, step number 5 is making sure that you maintain the same value proposition that you started with once these opportunities start to present themselves. Make sure that there are companies that are in line with the value you're trying to provide to your audience. The approach that I take on social media is I do not promote products or work with brands that fall outside of the value proposition that I've created with my audience. If your brand, service, or product does not relate to me or relate to my audience and I don't think it's valuable, I will not work with you. And that's why I've worked with brands like Squarespace for so long. Squarespace has allowed me to make over $100,000 on my website, evanramp.com, and I was using their platform before they were even a sponsor on this channel. So with that being said, I want to take a minute to thank today's sponsor, Squarespace. So by now you've watched enough YouTube videos to know that Squarespace is the easiest way to showcase your photography business. You can build a blog, you can build build an online store like I did with evanramp.com. But Squarespace does more than just provide a website for my business. They provide me multiple ways to connect with my audience that less people know about. One is their email marketing tools. Squarespace has easy to design email templates just like their websites that allow you to send different news and updates to your email list. And one great way to build your email list is to provide a free product on your Squarespace site like I do with my free preset. People get value from the free preset, and then a few times a year I'm able to connect with them via my email list. The most recent example of this was me sending out an email to everyone on that list announcing my new course. In the past, I've talked about how easy Squarespace makes it to add a contact me button to your website, but Squarespace has taken it to the next level with their new scheduling tools. These scheduling tools allow you to put a calendar on your site, so when a potential client comes to your site to book you, they can pick a time slot directly on the site, so all the scheduling is handled automatically. No more putting dates into your calendar or into your phone. It is done the minute the client books with you. Start taking advantage of all the business tools Squarespace has to offer today. Just go to squarespace.com/EvanRamp, start a free trial, and when you're ready to make your purchase, you can save 10% with code EvanRamp. That's squarespace.com/EvanRamp for a free trial, and use code EvanRamp to save 10% when you sign up. Now, the final step that has led me to make this kind of money online is this concept called jab, jab, hook. Now, I believe Gary Vee came up with this concept, but I could be wrong on that. But the idea is creating so much value within your audience for free that when it comes time for you to promote a product or promote something new that you've created, the value has built up almost like a bubble and you're popping it. That's the main reason why when I introduce new things to my website or introduce new products, I usually downplay it. I don't talk about it a lot until it's a very big moment, and I only have these big moments maybe once a year. Last year it was the release of my book. This year it's the release of my course, which I haven't even talked about on this YouTube channel because I want to continue to build that value up. And when it comes time for me to promote that, I want to make sure people are receptive to that promotion. I don't want to be constantly promoting things that I'm creating, constantly having these big asks. The point of this YouTube channel is to provide value, and then when I present a new product, the goal of that product is to provide this massive amount of value to this audience that I've built up over time and built a rapport and a trust with. So if you're looking to sell anything online, whether it's your courses, whether it's your workshops, whether it's your prints, make sure that you are spacing out the promotion time between each one. You can share the things that you're doing and share links to your sites and things like that, but you want to be nonchalant. You want to make sure that there's a lot of time between the big asks. Make sure there's a lot of time between the big launches. So when those things come about that you put all this time into, all this value you're looking to provide to people, it's taken seriously.